Hello, everybody. This is Keeping It Real with FK, and I'm your host, Faisal Kapadia. Hello, everybody. So, this is Faisal Kapadia with a new episode of my podcast. And I have with me today a pretty famous singer, songwriter, musician, traveler, what all can I call her? Zeb Bangash is here with us today. So, welcome, Zeb.
Hi, thank you, Fessa. So nice to be here.
And where in the world are you right now?
So I'm back in Lahore now. I've been I've been traveling quite a bit these past few months.
So, Zeb, tell me about your travels and the journey of your music along with those travels as well. Because from what I've read and what I've known about you, you've always been sort of like a musical nomad, so as to speak.
Yeah, I guess ultimately it's become that. Like I've kind of taken that on, but really I didn't really have to travel much to be associated with different kinds of music because I was lucky enough to grow up in a household where we had, in our musical tastes, we had musics from all over the world and from different parts of our region. So,
Is that like
by
a is
that I
that
mean
like a
that,
gharana sort of a thing? What is that like? I mean, was it like a
no,
musical gharana? Do you come from something like that?
oh dear, I wish. No, not at all. I come from a music loving gharana, which I think are many gharanas in Pakistan. But no, nobody in my family was a professional musician or even a professional artist for that matter. Nobody was in the performing arts. Everybody was like, we had a bunch of engineers and people in the army and so it was a very professional background, out of the arts and conventional that way. But somehow, alongside with that, everybody seemed to have a real kind of musical bone and musical kind of aesthetic. And it also, music was the one thing that we really shared as a family together whenever we had large gatherings. There was food and then there was the singing of songs. So in that sense, yeah, musical, but not music like professional Karana.
Okay, so I mean, you're basically saying that it brought you together as a family, and that's what the family bonded over. That's pretty cool. That's pretty much like any other musical family, though, or any family that listens to music in Pakistan, which is a lot.
That's right.
Yeah, but मुझे ये बताएं कि I mean, how did you go from this to a full-fledged career in music? How did that happen?
The one thing that I've realized, Faisal, is that most thing in my life have happened when I haven't really been making an effort for them to make them happen. So I've always had this kind of strange serendipity following me everywhere. So I was in college and I was studying economics primarily. Also, I was doing another major in art history, but I wanted to be a banker. Came here, I even tried to be a banker. And somehow during the time that I was in college, my cousin and we were in like colleges nearby each other, and we ended up making some fun songs just out of a sense of homesickness. And she put them up on the internet. And the next thing I knew when I came back from college was that they were playing on the radio and journalists were writing about us. And one of the biggest producers in Pakistan, Mikal Hassan, wanted to produce our album, and Gumby started calling us saying, let me arrange your music. So all of this happened. I already had an interest in music, and I just kind of went along with things that were happening. And before I knew it, we had an album ready. So my album with my cousin, which probably never really happens. So it was all fate.
So basically, you just sort of fell into this career. You didn't plan anything.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't go through any process. It just happened. You know, this is so funny because a lot of creative people have this kind of a story where they're doing something else and then basically
Mm-hmm.
they get a calling of fate and they just fall into this. But
Mm-hmm.
that's where their energy is destined to be, and that's eventually where they end up. So it's quite interesting that
Mm-hmm.
this happens to a lot of creative people. Tell me, इतनी सारे आप लोगों ने गाने बनाए आपकी कजन आपने साथ and then you guys basically amicably separated and you've been going along on this musical journey. You've sung for OSTs, you sung for huge movies, You've sung for different kind of genres. You've had many famous numbers. What was the one moment in your life when you felt that this is it? Like, this is my calling. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. When was that moment?
So I think that moment didn't really come till much later. I think because we fell into it, like you said, and then also got a lot of love. But I came from a very conventional background, and I didn't always vibe well with, the high flying lifestyle that accompanies professionals in the media world. And sometimes, and to be
So
honest, I've always,
you didn't want to be a rock star, basically.
I mean, I never was a rock star. I don't think I'm a rock star even today. I mean, we always did we did singer-songwriter stuff. And that's also very interesting is that, it's funny because even our supporters, when you actually hit the industry, they have their own perception and then they kind of need you to conform, even though most of the people who would ask us about difficulties, they would ask about how did your male colleagues treat you? How did your community react? You're Pathan, did your family say anything? But actually for me, the biggest kind of hurdle was when I finally met the industry, because the industry could only see women in a certain way. Or if you're pretty like glamorous girl, then you had to be the rock star who was angry, who's the angry chick, and I didn't want to be a model and I didn't want to be angry. And so I just didn't know, where I just wanted to do my music. And so for a long time, I didn't feel like this is what I want to do. But interestingly, I had the best time of my life in that time. I continued to have the best time of my life. And I saw a lot of love from all over the world. And as someone who just really likes connection, I mean, that's when I think a year after Hanya and I kind of parted ways, and I got deep into my practice with my Ustad Nasiruddin Sami, and I kind of accepted myself as a vocalist. That's when I knew that this wasn't just about, this wasn't about whether I was going to be a hit or not, whether the market liked me or not. This was just a practice that was a part of my life forever. It was always going to be my thing.
Which is the next thing I was going to come to, because I was part of that ceremony. I was very honored by you to be made a part of that ceremony with your Ustad Sahab. That the star, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, the Ganda Bandhan, as it's called.
Yeah.
And I saw a very vulnerable person at that moment who had spent a lot of time doing riyaz. If I'm not wrong, almost a decade to be exact to get to that point. And what I took away from that ceremony was, how difficult it is to actually go through the whole process, how difficult it is to go through this journey. I mean, the journey of classical music is extremely difficult.
It is. I think any journey is difficult if you're going to really care about your craft, whether any kind of artistic journey or any other, profession for that matter. I guess इससे वो नियत का भी एक ताल्लुक है, because if your intention is to be famous or to be big, then of course, it's difficult also, but it's difficult in other ways. You have to show up to other things. But if your intention really is to hone your craft, to know your voice, to be able to use your instrument the way your heart desires, then that really does require a lot of rigor. It requires focus and also quite a few sacrifices. So I have to say that it never felt like that. I never feel like I'm sacrificing anything when
Because
I'm
you
learning.
love what you
I just
do.
always feel it. Because I love what I do, and I also have, beautiful teachers. Like my teacher is an amazing human being. So it's such a transformative experience for me to be a part of this, because I don't just learn music, I also learn life, from him. So it's really nice. Yeah.
So tell me, Zeb, I know you're not the conventional sort of like a singer, but everybody has a process. What is Zeb's process? to create a song? What inspires you?
So, what inspires me, of
I know
course,
travel is one.
first, foremost, travel is one, connection is another. But, I think for anyone, ultimately, it's, to feel something very deeply, and that could be anything. It could be your own personal hurt. It could be what you see around in the world. It could be the weather. But it's always like that little moment where like you really feel like your heart is like connected to something. And then that in itself kind of brings about that, that inspiration to create. But of course, I'm also a professional vocalist. So I've also kind of honed, or I'm in the process of honing rather, that skill of like, if someone actually brings something to me, because a lot of times I have to do that, like someone already gives me either words or a tune or both, and then they want me to put my voice to it. So then I have to like really think about, it's almost a bit like acting, because I have to like think about where in my experience I can find inspiration to make this sentiment or these words or this tune my own. And so it kind of really comes through a lot of meditation, I would say.
So मुझे आपसे ये भी पूछना था ज़ेब कि I've heard a lot of your songs and some of your songs have a very different tonality than some other stuff that you've done. Like we'll come to the latest thing that you've done as well, but some of the things you've done in the past have different tonalities to it. There is this very sweet tonality that you bring out sometimes, and then there is this sort of like a semi-angry kisam ki tonality. I mean, at least that's what it appears to as a listener. Do you do this on purpose, or is that the passion or the lyrics that drive this? What changes?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, no one person has the same tonality even in their speaking voice, right? It depends on what you ate for dinner. It depends on how you're feeling and exactly what mood and kind of emotional response you want to bring out in the other person. But somehow what happens is that because जब आप सीखे भी नहीं होते हो, तो फिर you just think about one kind of voice that you think is yours, and then you hold on to it, and then you try to sing everything in that tone. But actually, that's exactly what an education in voice or training will bring you, is that it makes you kind of aware of and train your entire instrument. So it allows you to build voices within voices, or connect to your entire instrument rather. So you can bring that, and I enjoy that so much. Like there's this song that I did for the movie Fitur Haminastu, and a lot of people tell me that doesn't even sound like me. But that's the whole point, it is me, but it's me in a different way. Also, region to region, I've been like exposed to different regional music. So every region, but the way you sing also has to do with आपकी ज़बान कैसी है, उसके phonetics कैसे हैं. How do people actually take out, the words that they speak with will also have an effect on how they sing. So like the voice in Punjab is different from the voice in Karachi, is different from the voice of the desert. All of these things matter. And when you know how to take out different voices from your instrument, it's a lot of fun to play around with that. And I think it also gives you a little bit of variety.
Zeb, has somebody ever told you that you sound a lot better in different languages than you do in Urdu?
Yeah, well, I think some people have said that. Although some people have also said we want you to sing a lot more in Urdu.
No, but
So
for
I
them,
get
that
both.
for other people in the world who hear music in those languages, first of all, tell my audience how many languages you can sing in, so they sort of get in context of what we're talking about.
So I can sing in around 12 languages.
Which are?
Okay, I'm gonna have to. So there's Balochi, there's Brahui, there's Pashto, there's Dari, there's English, there's Turkish, there is Arabic, I'm also doing something in Spanish. There's Urdu, of course. Then there's also then I've also done a song in Vahi, which isn't out yet. And then there's a couple more, forgetting. But I remember
Basically,
the
इतनी vast range of language Zeb की है जब ये गाती हैं तो,
Kashmiri.
and Kashmiri.
Ji.
And
Yeah.
by the way, Hindi also, because I think the Hindi and the Urdu thing are different, aren't they?
There are. I mean, like, especially the kind of stuff, because, if I do stuff that I do with, if you're singing in kind of like a Tumri Ang or things like that, so then it's different. Yeah. It's definitely different.
So Zeb, coming to your current project, which is the Saaf Hawa project, and basically this is an international collaboration, as all of us know by now, and it's between different artists who are collaborating for a campaign which is talking about awareness of what pure air means to the world and how climate change is affecting all of us, और उसके जो disastrous effects हम अभी देख रहे हैं पाकिस्तान में, जो आजकल floods आए हुए हैं. So tell me how this project happened and what was your core inspiration behind singing this?
So, I've been kind of associated with this now, Faisal, for the past 3 years, or maybe even before that, because one of the main kind of directors of Saaf Hawa, who happens to live in New York, and I have a band based out of New York, and I think it's somewhere in 2017 or something, we had a big performance at Joe's Pub, and she heard us there. And she'd heard my music before, but she heard me live for the first time there. And so, we kind of set up a little bit of a friendship. And then I also ended up doing, with the same band, I ended up doing this kind of Eid function at the UN. And I met her again over there. And she said, look, my thing is that I am all about clean air and I want you to do a song with us. And I said, sure. And then it was quite an arduous journey because, of course, we were dealing with COVID in the middle. It was very, very important that this song be kind of about, the region, because as you know, South Asia is the dirtiest region in the world when it comes to air quality. And, around 38 of the 43 dirtiest cities in the world when it comes to air are in South Asia. So, she was very, very concerned that it had to kind of speak the whole region. And we went through many ups and downs, many kind of stops and starts, but this was one element that I felt very strongly about. Also because Lahore was considered to be the dirtiest city this year.
Absolutely.
And Lahore thought that, listen, I'm from Lahore, like my family, my parents' house is in Lahore. And I know how much of a difference that made. When I came back, from the States in December, I couldn't believe I was in the same city. December for us was all about hanging out in Lawrence Gardens with our kinnus and going for long trips and just like the outdoors. The winters in Lahore was about the outdoors.
Yeah.
And this was the first time that you couldn't really see the sun at all. Everyone was huddled inside. It just brought such a sense of doom and gloom. And it's,
but some of the influencers in Lahore may have thought, oh, this is London, how cool.
Maybe, but I have to say, having been to Delhi a few times, I also know how much people are suffering there with diseases that they'd never thought, they were dealing with. So a lot of that was the inspiration. And then finally, when we got, the most amazing Shantanu Moitra on board, who happens to be a dear friend, and I know, and also a big, climate change enthusiast, like in the sense that stopping climate change enthusiast. And he just did this, project around the Ganges River.
He's an activist. He's a huge activist.
He's a huge environmental activist, and he actually takes time out, despite being an extremely busy and otherwise important music director in Bollywood. He actually every year takes out a chunk of time to visit places, to kind of really connect with nature through some project or the other. I mean, is Saal, he's actually filmed it, but this particular journey, he's always doing some kind of thing like this every year, I think for the past couple of decades. So I think what really helped was that he made the song right after he came back from the journey. So he had just seen, and he saw like how when he went up and he saw the beautiful clean air, and then as he was descending down, there were some places where he couldn't actually cycle through without a mask, So he kind of experienced that himself. Of course, we were in touch. I was seeing also on social media. So I was also like kind of following that journey. I was seeing what was happening in Lahore. And then finally, when Mir Ali's like extremely beautiful words came to light, and that I think was the main anchor of the song, the way it's been written. And one fact that I must mention is that so I was told before I started the song that now the kind of diseases that kids used to develop at, say, age 5 after being in polluted environments, they are developing in their mother's womb. That means the first time that a human being will be affected by air pollution is when they're a fetus. So that to me, that really like struck me as something devastatingly sad. And that we're actually bringing kids in this world without giving them their main human right. And that I think was a main inspiration, or kind of point of like hurt where I was coming from. And then of course the anchor were the words and the tune.
And the song itself, Saaf Hawa, you can hear it on YouTube and you can hear it on different platforms. It's on Vimeo as well. Has it been released, I believe, on Spotify and other locations as well, where you can listen to it. But this hurt sounds through your vocals as well. That is what I love about that song. And this is particular quality you have, Zeb. Even when you talk about something, the emotions that you are feeling are very automatically reflected in your voice. Is this because of training or it's a natural thing?
No, as my mother says, I'm just too dramatic all the time.
Okay. So now,
it's not a good thing.
speaking of drama, let's talk about how Lahore has changed over the years.
Oh yeah, that's a drama in front of all of us. Yeah.
So
It's
tell
really
me, tell me,
changed.
how do you feel about the new Lahore?
At some level, it's very, very exciting, of course, because right now we have a lot of public transportation that's taking people because Lahore was always a little town of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That didn't really mingle much.
The walled city.
But now, because of the walled city was one, Gulberg was another, Kant was another, us tarah se Rai went. But now, like, because of the roads and the public transportation, and of course everyone has, there's a lot of accessibility. In that sense, it feels like a much more connected city. It's also grown a lot. There's a lot more economic activity. There's a lot more to do, but I do, I guess, I do miss the old Lahore, in the sense that I miss that even though it was always a big city and it always had that kind of openness, but it was also had this like sweet town kind of perspective on life, and people always make time for art and culture. Like, I mean, when I first moved here, I was just blown away by the fact that whenever, like, you'd go to someone's house, to my friend's house in school or something, and someone, some sibling would be taking sitar lessons, and another sibling would be, would be dancing, or like there would be, there was poetry, art, there still is, but I feel like that doesn't really form the main core of the city anymore, or perhaps I'm not in touch with it. Of course, it's still there. It's still a very vibrant artistic community, and I've been working with some of these young people, and they're ridiculously nice. But the most important thing again is I think that all this development has happened very irresponsibly and erratically. So I'm not against the development. I'm loving the growth. I'm loving having more people have access to this beautiful town and its heritage and all of that. But the way we're building roads, the way we're just putting more and more and more vehicles on the street, the way we're just not worrying about what we're doing to the air, to the trees, to the actual character of the town is very troubling for me.
So by the way, let me tell you about how I feel about this, because I have visited Lahore a lot, particularly in my childhood for family trips and stuff like that. And then I visited it for my business now. And it feels like two different cities to me as an outsider.
It's not the same place anymore.
It is not the same. You're being very polite. It's not the same place at all, because I remember that place, and then I go there for work and I'm like, hello, what's this? There's a bridge coming out of
Where
everywhere.
am I? Yeah, there's roads coming out of everywhere. There's cars coming out of everywhere.
And then there's this incessant, Karachi has this chaotic, incessant energy about it, right? It's just too fast.
Yeah.
It's too chaotic. It's too hectic. And Lahore had always got that laid back between Karachi, Islamabad feel. But now I feel like it's turning into another Karachi, which I hate. Because
maybe that now you don't have anywhere to run to. So
no, that's not. I don't hate Karachi at all, but I'm just like, उस शहर का एक जो वो था ना, एक शहर की एनर्जी थी, एक शहर का सुरूर था, वो नहीं है अब. I don't know of any Lahoris that I meet now who want to go into Andurun शहर to have those tawa chickens and the kulche wale or chole or जो सब. I don't meet those people anymore. Everybody I meet.
ये बहुत अलग हो गया है.
Everybody I meet in Lahore always wants to go to fancy restaurants and just chill out in Gulberg and around Alam Road or whatever, or Defense. Defense. Everybody wants to hang out in Defense, but that's about it. I don't get that feeling anymore that I used to, where I would experience the cultural side of the city. I just don't feel like that exists anymore. And that I asked you that question because I felt that as an artist that would be painful for you. But you've been very polite about it. Zeb, there's one other thing that people haven't realized about you. You're very polite and diplomatic, aren't you?
Yeah, but this is only a select few hear my evil, see my evil side.
Oh, so there is an evil side as well.
Of course.
So Zeb, tell me, is there a message that you want to give to our audience and to your fans and listeners out there? I know you're what I call a humble cumble, because you really don't even realize how big of a star you are yourself. So, you're always like playing that, oh my God, are these people and these fans for real? But there are millions of them out there. So do you want to give a message to them?
Yeah, I just want to give them a big kind of message of love. And I think one thing I'd really like to say is that, we sometimes get especially nowadays, I'm seeing so many people are very stressed out. And so, I would just say that I would like everybody to kind of find their little creative outlet. And I think that, that would really help a lot of people, and it would help them as well. And I think that, we must, I would like to give a message out. One is one of thanks, and one is also find joy wherever you can find it, because that's what life is all about.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Zeb Bangash. Thank you very much, Zeb.